So a YouTuber got caught doing something kind of stupid, and this time it's become an international incident. And no, we're not talking about a Johnny Somali type situation. This guy here, who goes by the name Neo-Orientalist on YouTube, with a small YouTube channel, decided to go out and bring the wonders of Coca-Cola to one of the world's least contacted tribes. That's right, we've got a YouTuber trying to contact the North Sentinelese. Now, a lot of people will know who the North Sentinelese are because they've been talked about a lot recently, as they're one of the last cultures on Earth to not really be affected by the outside world. Now, a lot of people will tell you that they're the last uncontacted tribe. That's not exactly true. The North Sentinelese have in fact been contacted many times in their history, and they've accepted gifts from foreigners and also had some of their people visit the mainland at least once. It didn't end very well, but we'll get to that. You see, when people say they're uncontacted, what they're actually meaning to say is that their culture has not really been studied and that nobody's been able to talk to them because their language is incomprehensible to us. You see, if we go down here on the Wikipedia page for North Sentinel Island, you will see that there have been many visits. The British visited a whole lot of times, starting in March in 1867. Then in the same year of 1867, there was a merchant ship that crashed on the island. 106 people survived the crash, only to be attacked by the Sentinelese, eventually to be rescued by a Royal Navy rescue party. There was later an expedition in 1880, led by Maurice Vidal Portman, that did some pretty bad things. Basically, they went onto the island, found the North Sentinelese, and kidnapped a couple of them. Yep, they took 6 Sentinelese, an elderly couple, and 4 children, and took them to Port Blair. The colonial officer in charge of the operation wrote that the entire group sickened rapidly and the old man and his wife died, so the 4 children were sent back home with quantities of presents. Now, that's actually an important thing to note here, because they were sent back with presents. So what does that mean? This is as close as you can get to an alien abduction, but it being of other humans, because these kids were taken on a boat which they've probably never seen before, into a culture, into a world that they've never seen before, only to then be unceremoniously dumped back onto their island with a whole bunch of stuff that they'd never seen before, and presumably a whole lot of diseases, which is what probably killed the old man and his wife. As you may know, whenever a culture of humans comes into contact with a different culture of humans, there's usually an exchange of diseases, which kills off a lot of the natives. For instance, the natives in the Americas had never really domesticated a lot of the animals like cows that the Europeans had domesticated, and therefore they weren't ever exposed to the diseases that came from those animals, including smallpox. And so when the Europeans came into contact with the Native Americans without even knowing that they were doing it and having no way to stop it, they caused a whole lot of the Native Americans to die from smallpox, simply because it was in a time before anybody understood germ theory and the Native Americans had absolutely no immunity to it. So there is worry that that will happen to the Sentinelese with what this YouTuber did. However, I don't think that it's incredibly likely because they have been exposed to the outside world. In fact, they were exposed to the outside world in the year 1880, in a time before smallpox was gotten rid of. So this could have been really bad, and I think it was pretty bad. I do believe that their population was in severe decrease after this happened, but this wasn't the last time that they were visited. In fact, I believe up until 1997, there were people going to this island and bringing them gifts. So if we look here, there were all sorts of shipwrecks, people landing on the island every few years, beginning in 1967. In 1975, the King of Belgium was taken to the island, although I don't think he actually landed, they just stayed off the coast. There was peaceful contact made in 1991 by a team of researchers, where they went through and they tried to make contact with the Sentinelese. They brought them coconuts and other gifts. However, they made absolutely no progress in understanding anything about their language, and according to the Wikipedia article, the Sentinelese would repeatedly warn them off if they stayed too long. How do you warn somebody off if you don't know their language? Well, I'm pretty sure they were shooting arrows at them to get them to leave. So, you know, not exactly the safest thing to do, which led to the Indian visits being ceased in 1997. That's right, the tribe was not uncontacted before this. They've been contacted a lot up until about 1997 when the Indian government stopped everybody from going. They did, however, go and check on them after the 2004 earthquake. But for the most part, since 1997, there has not been that much going on the island. There was a missionary that landed a few years ago. In November 2018, an American missionary landed on the island. I think he was killed. So anyway, this YouTuber was lucky, he survived. However, it is incredibly stupid to go onto this island because they have a history of killing people who show up on their island, and you always run the risk of bringing them a new disease. You might note that since 2018, when the last guy was there was kind of a big disease going around, you know, COVID. So this guy could have accidentally brought COVID to the Sentinelese. Hopefully he didn't. That would be devastating because they have absolutely no hospitals, no medical understanding. They're in a culture that never got to the point of medical knowledge, right? Medical science. So if they got COVID, it could be pretty bad. But at the end of the day, this guy showed up on the island. He only had 800 subscribers at the time, by the way. So imagine you just start your YouTube channel, you have 800 subscribers, and you want to go take on the world. Now, I don't know if I would risk spending the rest of my life in prison for 800 subscribers, but apparently this guy was willing to. So he went on and he was going to bring them a Coca-Cola, I believe. He landed briefly on the island for about 5 minutes, left some offerings on the shore, collected sand samples, and recorded a video before returning to his boat. I review of his GoPro camera footage showed his entry and landing into the restricted North Sentinelese island. He had previously tried to get on the island in January, but was unsuccessful. If we go up here, we can see that he did try to bring them a coconut and a can of Diet Coke. Was he worried about the calories? I feel like if you're gonna bring them Coke, you might as well bring them Coca-Cola. However, this guy is not in great shape because they are in fact going to charge him with a lot of crimes. He's facing years in jail. We get a little more information in this article. He blew a whistle to try to get the tribe's attention and nobody showed up, so he left, which is good because he didn't actually come into contact with them. And if we go down here, we can see that he was denied bail and that he's facing up to 5 years in prison along with a fine if found guilty of his crimes. I'm pretty sure that given he recorded himself doing this, his chances of coming out innocent are not great, but you know, he can always hold out hope. Probably not the best thing to try to sneak onto North Sentinelese Island, especially if you want to avoid a 5-year prison sentence for your YouTube channel, which has only 867 subscribers. I do think that now it has over 3,000, but that's just from people going from finding out that he went to North Sentinel Island and subscribing to him. So I won't promote that. I'm not going to show his YouTube channel on here. Obviously, you could find it if you looked for it. I don't really want to promote him because he did just do something that was insanely reckless for no reason. I mean, look at the guy who went before him, a missionary who was trying to spread the word of God. You can disagree with him doing that. You can disagree with what he was doing and why he was doing it. You can't say that you don't understand why he was doing it. It's entirely understandable why he did it. You can disagree with it, but at least you have to respect it. With this guy, there's nothing to respect. All this guy did was go there to leave a can of Diet Coke and film himself standing on the shore. Why? Why risk your life for that? Why risk 5 years in jail over that? I'll never understand. But what do you guys think? Let me know in the comments. Thank you so much for watching all the way till the end. Remember to like and subscribe. Have a great day, and God bless you.